Hello everyone, I'd like to share how I was able to beat a 1700 bot on chess.com. I played Arthur and he ended up with an 86.5% accuracy in this game, which is pretty tough to beat for me. I'm almost a 900 rated player and I had a 92.8% accuracy. So let's share how this was done and what my thought process was during it. Started with e4 and he countered with e6, and whenever possible I would just like to take the center, and I also, whenever possible, I like to I don't like to mix it up in the beginning. I like to stay safe, so do something like that and just build a solid foundation. So he moves to c5 and I'm just going to continue building this wall here, protecting it. He's attacking here. Now I'm protecting it multiple ways. Okay. Then he moves his knight. He's attacking here twice now. And since I'm defending twice, I'm okay. And so I start building on my other side now. And now he's attacking this 3 times now. So since I don't have enough to defend this at the moment, I'm only defending it 2 times. I end up bringing out my knight to protect. So he's going to lose that battle if he starts fighting for that square. Right? And he takes it anyway, and I'll show you what I mean. The computer recommends that I take with the pawn this way. I wanted to protect against the knight coming to this square, um, and I wanted to keep my um, wall intact here. So I ended up taking with my knight, and it's not the best, but the reason I did so, he takes, I take, and I have my wall still here, which isn't the greatest with the queen, I don't think, but it's protected by this. I was challenging, I was offering a trade of queens and I would have been fine with it because I would have just taken it here. As a lower rated player, I like to get as many pieces off the board as possible, um, to try to take this to an endgame so I don't end up blundering something. So he does bishop d7, and what I move my pawn to b4, it's protected just to protect, stop the queen from coming in. He ends up taking the queen trade now, so I take back, and notice I have my little protection wall right there. He ends up taking there, and I protect my king with my bishop, and he moves back. So I bring my other bishop to d3 and just focus on attacking this side of the board really, but this side is also attacked as well. He moves to a6. I end up castling, and he brings his rook to the open file. And I originally, well, I did make this move. I moved the knight to c3, thinking I just don't want his rook, coming all the way down this file, but he really can't anyway, because once he gets beyond this square, everything else was protected anyway. But I think the computer said that was a good move anyway, putting my knight here. It's protected, stops the rook from coming in. He moves his rook forward one, and I wanted to stop his pawn advancing down this side of the board, especially since I have no protection for it on that file. Notice my pawn is being threatened by that bishop, and I can protect it this way. So now that he moves his rook ahead, I notice that this pawn is not protected, so I jump over here in case I can take it. I can't. He jumps back, and now my pawn is hit without being protected. Well, I guess it's protected there, but I move it forward anyway, stop his pawn from advancing, and get it out of the way of these bishops. That way my other pieces are free to move, and not have to try to protect that. Okay, so he brings his bishop to c6, and I start advancing to f5. Was protected this way. He drops back to d8, and I take. He takes me back, and what this does is it leaves this file open, and he can't castle while I have this covered. So I jump up, anticipating that I want to double my rooks there, and he brings his knight out, and I do double my rooks, and he starts advancing his pawn. Okay, and the idea here is this, and then this, attacking the king. He moves back. Now this is an interesting move, and I see why he did this now. Now my rook is blocked, and he can castle. So I end up bringing my bishop there to pin the knight. The knight can't move right now, because if he does, then his king's exposed. And he ends up castling. And I'm starting to reroute my knight now to try to bring it back over here to help with the attack. And he attacks it, or he threatens it here. And if I'm not mistaken, I ended up doing this, thinking, all right, if he's going to take my knight, I'll take his rook. Doesn't really work that way, because once he takes my knight, then he can do this as well. But I still threaten his rook, takes, and then I bring my bishop back to take his bishop, and then he blocks his rook from being attacked. I take it anyway, just to simplify. He's actually up 1 point right now. And I bring my bishop back to threaten. He moves his rook, maybe threatening something along here, stopping here to attack this maybe. Then I bring my rook into play, and he brings it back to prevent me from, this would have been a free pawn, so he's preventing that from happening. Then I believe this was my big mistake of the game. I did end up winning, but the computer, and this is weird, the computer wanted me to go here so that I could attack this, because then if he takes, I take, and I'm up that exchange. However, when I played this out, when I went here, he just brought his rook here, and there's nothing I could do anyway. Maybe there's something else then I could do instead, but anyway, I ended up taking, he takes, and I bring, so the whole point of this move is, I wanted this rook protected by this pawn. Had I stayed here, if he takes, and then he ends up taking down here, I'm sorry, if he takes here, and then ends up going from here to here again, my king is trapped. I can't take, because he's got it covered with that rook up at the top. So I had him protected by this pawn. He moves his king into play. He can't take my rook because it's protected. So I move to attack down the same file as the king. So we exchange rooks, and then he takes my pawn. So that wasn't a good exchange for me. We each have a king and a rook, but he has 6 pawns and I have 4. The analysis shows that he's favored by about 2 at this moment. So I attack his king. I notice that it's on the same file as the rook, so I'm hoping his king moves out of the way and I can just take the rook. However, his king protects it. So I move over here thinking, all right, I need to start trying to eat some of his pawns. He protects that again. So I move mine up, and he moves to e5, and I take, and his king helps with the attack. So I come up here thinking I'll take this, and then he starts advancing, and I think, uh-oh, he's 3 away. So I take the pawn while I can. Now he's 2 away, and I think, crap, how am I going to get there? Can't go here or I'll get taken. So I go around the long way. And I think if he would have done this to protect, I wouldn't have been able to come over here to try to stop this. But he didn't do that. He moved his king there instead. And that really was a mistake, because he's up 59 points, the computer analysis says, which is basically just about a guaranteed win. But that's got to be a blunder, and it allows me to move my pawn to e6, attacking both the king and the rook at the same time. He takes with his king. That allows me to go protect that pawn, to threaten that pawn. He went from up 59 to up about 1.3 right here. So he gets in the way, and I think, all right, I'm just going to trade. Now it's a king and 4 pawns against my king and 3 pawns, and the rule of the square is if my king is within this square, um, then I can stop his pawn when it's his turn. So since it's my turn, I jump over here, and that takes me down minus losing almost 6 points here. That for some reason here was supposed to be much better, and I'm not sure why. But I'm within this square now, so that you can see 1, 2, 3 is that's how far away he is. 1, 2, 3. So you got a nice square. Since I'm in it, I'm going to be able to reach that pawn in time. So realizing that, he starts advancing another one, and we're completely even at this point. The analysis shows. And once I jump my king into here to stop that pawn, I'm finally up 1.5. I take it. He takes me. He's still up a pawn. However, I've got an advantage on the right side of the board. I'm going to use my king to help prevent his pawn from moving. And now I'm just going to take his pawn there. And he is not within this square, and it's my turn. So you can see I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. So to be within the square right here, he's not, and it's my turn. So he can't catch me. And realizing that, he starts moving his pawn, take it, and since he can't get me, I end up getting my queen. And I don't want to play any games with this. I'm going to just eat his last pawn here. He moves away, and I'm just going to drive him to the edge of the board, and I do. And then I make sure that I don't stalemate. I give him room to move back and forth between these two squares while I bring my king into play. Get my king close enough that now I can move my queen into checkmate. And that's how I finally beat a 1700 bot. It took a lot of tries. 2 more 1700 bots to play, and then on to see if I can beat an 1800 bot. And that's it. Thanks for watching.